Welcome, groupies. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's another fabulous day in paradise. Now maybe you can see the smoke wafting through from my incense. I'm having my morning meditation time and getting ready to start the day stuff. So I'm glad you're here. Come on, let's get started. So the first thing I do every day is I get up, make myself a cup of coffee, come in here and light some incense or maybe a scented candle. It kind of starts the day off right, gets me in the right mindset and the right frame of mind to be productive and creative. I don't know if you have a morning routine or a meditation period, maybe some prayer time, some quiet time, but for most of us, that's a great way to start the day. And if you're a retired writer, a writer who is retired, that is, this is a good opener for your day. This is the way you want to start your day, to be at your absolute most creative. And I hope that if you don't have a morning meditation or a morning prayer ritual or a morning routine of some kind, that you'll consider starting one because it really does help. So now that all that's out of the way, guess what time it is? Oops, it's time to drop my pin box. So now that that's out of the way, it's time to get started with the journaling and planning for the day. Here we go. Yeah, I do a lot of this. I have a lot of things I like to say. This is just my general purpose, all-purpose kind of diary journal where I keep up with everything from what I want to do editorial-wise to how I'm feeling today about whatever might be going on. This is my actual writing journal, and it's also my mood tracker and my habit tracker. And as you can see, January 2021 is already quite full and maybe even finished. This is one that I have to build as I go. So I got started working on February. As you can see, I don't have anything in it yet other than Valentine's Day because that's going to be a special day. I'm going to do something special for my hubby that day. And I've written in March for the bottom here, this last row, but March will have its own page, but it's a blank slate for February, you guys. Well, here we are, you guys. Now I'm getting busy. I'm gonna do some writing, and I hope that you will join me and get some writing done today. As you can see, my desk is just crazy busy and ready to go. So here we go. Well, I figured while I had you here, kind of a captive audience, that I would go ahead and do the video that I was planning on doing some time ago before I got COVID. And that is the most often asked questions by new writers. Now, this is retired writers, older writers, senior writers, over 50 writers. This is also young writers, new writers, writers just now coming into the industry. These are things that I've gleaned from the internet that people have asked on social media. And so I felt like this might be something that I want to tackle for our video today. So here we go. Number one, I've finished my novel. Now what? This is a very hotly asked question, you guys. And let me just tell you, if you're listening and this is your situation where you've just written the end, set it aside. Just set it aside. Go find something else to do for a while. How about reading a good book? That's a great idea. Read a good book. Take your mind off of what you've written and put it on something somebody else has written. trust me on this. You want to let your manuscript rest for a while before you go to the next step. Now, once you've let it rest, once you've put it aside and you've not looked at it in a time and you've given it an opportunity to kind of get out of the forefront of your mind, then the next step comes. And the next step is to edit it. Oh, yes, you do need to edit it. You can get some books on self-editing if you want to, but really, if you know anything about spelling, punctuation, and grammar, you can do a self-edit yourself. You don't really need a whole lot of help. There's a lot of software now that goes the extra step and helps you to know when you've made a mistake. Like the plugin for Chrome called Grammarly has been a tremendous help for me. Whenever I misspell a word, it highlights it or underlines it. And whenever the actual text in a sentence is not exactly like it ought to be, it highlights it or underlines it for me. When I use an adverb that could be used a better way, it highlights it or underlines it for me. So there's plugins and there's software to help you do this in a lot of various ways that will get you to have a pretty clean manuscript when you're finished. But if you don't want to worry with that, once you type the end, hire an editor. Get somebody that knows what they're doing to help you in this book's process. You don't have to have it perfect, but make it as good as you can make it. And then an editor will make it publish ready. Even if you're going to do it yourself, it will be in a much better state once it's edited than it was once you first started it. Number 2, what is the difference between a novel and a book? That seems kind of elementary, doesn't it? Well, if you're an old head like me, it does. But for newbies and people who are not familiar with terminology, guys, this is a common question. People want to know. So here's the difference. A novel is a kind of book. See? You can have all kinds of books. A magazine's a kind of a book. A cookbook is a kind of a book. A travelogue is a kind of a book. But you know what? A novel is a fiction book. It's a book that is a made-up story that has no resemblance to anybody living or dead. That's the difference between novel and book. What do you wish you had known about writing a novel before you started? That's a good question. There are so many layers to the process. That's the thing that I wish that I had known the most, is that it's not just as simple as sitting down and writing. There's a lot more to this process. I mean, gosh, there's the plotting and the outlining stage, the drafting stage, and there's not just one draft ever. You're going to do 2 or 3 or 4 drafts because you want to make this story the best that it can possibly be. So one draft? No, don't do that. It's not going to be the best thing you ever wrote, believe me. It's going to have to be edited, and you're going to have to do more than one draft to make it what you want it to be. And then, of course, if you're going to be self-publishing it, there's the formatting, the cover design, the uploading to the vendors, and the promoting. There's a lot more to this process, you guys, than just writing the book. I want to emphasize that a number of times. A lot of layers to the process. That old adage, like an onion, a lot of layers. Number 4, how do I find a publisher? This is, I hate to say this because I'm going to sound so, mean maybe. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm really not. But so many times a new author, just as soon as they hit the end, they're already jumping ahead and thinking about the publishing end of it. Where can I find an agent? Where can I find a publisher? Do I even need a publisher? Well, if you're going to self-publish, you don't really need a publisher. And if you're going to self-publish, you really don't need an agent. But if you don't want to self-publish, then you're going to have to go out to social media and find an agent. For the most part, I don't think there's very many publishers out there anymore that are New York publishers, the big 5 or the big 4 or whatever's left, that will accept your manuscript without an agent. So my advice is to go out to Twitter and start following the agents that are on Twitter. And I'm telling you, most of them are. And it's very simple to do. You just follow them and you just pay attention to the posts and the tweets that they put out every day, because they're going to tell you a lot about them and what they like and how they go about their process in their tweets pretty much every day. Now, most publishers that are good and true have a requirement that you can only submit to them through an agent. And some of those publishers are on Twitter. And a lot of the editors at those houses are on Twitter. And you can also find them through agentquery.com, agentquery.com, agentquery.com. And I recommend that you check out Twitter and Agent Query if you're going to go the traditional route. Number 5, how many chapters should my book have, and or how many pages should a chapter have? Well, now this is not so easy to answer because, every book's different. And based on it, if it's a nonfiction or if it's a fiction piece, determines the number of chapters. And also, the number of pages in a chapter can be up to an author. I mean, I've seen some chapters that are only a paragraph long. And then I've got some chapters in a book of mine that are 7,000 words long. So it's kind of, this is kind of a tough one to answer, and it's kind of dependent upon the type of book you're writing and what your own personal preference is and what your story dictates. Sometimes a story really just doesn't have to have a long chapter. 1 page, as long as it's a punchy kind of chapter with a lot of important information in a short space, it can be a short chapter. If it's a historical fiction where you have a lot of cast of characters and a lot of historical things that have to be followed, chances are it's going to be a little longer. Number 6, what is the difference between a scene and a chapter? Well, this is a very good question too, and it's kind of like the last question insofar as chapters are a long collection of scenes. Now, yeah, chapter can be 1 page. It can have 2 scenes. It can have 1 scene. But you got to be careful because you want to make sure that it's telling you enough. You need to have scenes that make up a chapter, and the beginning, middle, and end of that chapter is enough information for the reader. You don't want to leave them hanging too much. Now, it's okay to leave them on a hook, but you don't want to leave them asking specific questions like, this strange person appears on the scene and then the scene ends and they don't ever find out. They have to go to another chapter to find out. That's a hook. But if you just have this person dancing across the page and nothing ever happens with them and you never end it, that can be kind of annoying. I guess a better way to answer that question would be, a robber enters a bank. That's a scene. You show him opening the door. You show him walking into the lobby. You show him going up to the teller. That's a scene. But what happens in the story the whole time he's there is a chapter. When you go from the front door to the front door, that's your chapter. Number 7, what is voice? I have heard a lot of agents say that this is the most difficult question to answer. And it's the most difficult question to try and nail down because voice is different from everybody. For everybody. Everybody has their own voice. It may be a young, teenage kind of voice where, they're really into the minutia of what goes on in a teenager's life. It could be a villain who is set on doing terrible, horrible, awful things in the world that we've created. And that would be a completely different voice. But I'm going to tell you, this is something very important for you to learn and to nail down because agents really care about voice. They say that they will turn down a book quickly if it's not voicey enough. And now, exactly what does that mean? Well, that's when you insert into the book your own special twist. You make the story and the characters come alive by what you say, what you type, what you put into the story. Anybody can write a 25-year-old woman who works in an office, but only you can make everything she does seem special and new with the voice you give the story via your own unique brand of creation. Too many stories with the same sound to them, with no unique voice, no unique vibration, that's the problem when it's not voicey enough. I mean, okay, so we have a story where she goes to work, she comes home, she binge watches TV, and she goes to bed. There's nothing new about that. But if you show where she comes home, or she goes to work, she comes home, she watches porn to learn about how to entice her boss by letting her skirt slide up, and then she, goes to bed and sets out a collection of blouses that's sure to entice him the next day, that's voice. It's different. It's new. It's different. Maybe nothing new under the sun, but that particular story, if you put your own voice to it, you could really make it into something interesting to read. Now, number 8. Is it true that no new stories exist, that they've all been done? Well, yes. There's only so many stories. They've all been written already, they say. That isn't to say you can't put your own spin on it, though. If you can make an old, tired trope come alive and seem new, then you have done what most publishers want to see in the books that they're publishing today. That's how they revitalize old genres. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've noticed there's an awful lot of fairy tale retellings these days, where they're taking stories like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and they're just flipping it on its head and turning it into something completely different. That is how you make an old story brand new. And, being special and different in your approach, you're going to just go so much further than most people out there that are trying to get published today. So if you can do that, that's very important. Number 9, how can I market my book? I'm just a writer. Believe me, I said this. I have said this a lot of times. There's many ways to promote your work. Now, you can go out and find podcasts. You can find YouTubers that want to talk about books. You can find YouTubers and podcasters who will read it and review it. You can find blog tour organizations who will host you on their blogs and help you to promote your work that way. My opinion only, and y'all don't kill me for this, but the best way to promote your book is through social media, even still today. If you plan out your posts on your social media by teasing the audience all through the process, well, guess what? You're going to draw interest. There's no way around it because there's so many people on social media these days. And if you are trying to promote work of yours and you do it in a unique and different way, they're going to notice. So something you could do would be like offer an excerpt from your work in progress. Post that. Follow it up with information on your book and how it's going with the writing. That's what I do. I do an awful lot of that where I tell my viewers, hey, I'm writing this book and it's going to be about this and so, and it's coming out here and there. And, when I get busy into the editing process, then I talk about how it's going with the editing, and then I come out with teasers from the book, and then the cover reveal comes out. And finally, the pre-order comes out with teasers from the book and the cover art. You use that with your teasers until it releases. And all of these times that you've been out there talking about it, you've been gaining interest for it. And then hopefully people will go out to the pre-order site and they will order the book. The only thing is, authors, you got to make people believe you. You can't just be, lukewarm about it. You got to be enthusiastic. If you don't believe in your work, nobody else is. Number 10, should I have a website and or a blog? Yes, you should. I cannot emphasize this enough because as we have all seen, especially recently, of the demise of sites, social media sites, the people who had content on those sites lost all of their content because we do not own the content that is on a social media site. Yes, we can use it as a tool to promote our stuff, but we cannot say that, oh, you can't take my content when you take down your site because we don't own it. So if you want to keep your things, you need to have a website and or a blog. Blog maybe could be questionable. A lot of people don't follow blogs anymore, but if they follow your website and you do have a blog, they might follow your blog. So it's always just an opportunity to gain a new reader. But when you have your website, then you have an email list sign up on it. And then you have people to sign up to be a part of your promotions and your upcoming work. And you can send emails to them and tell them the stuff that's going on. And you can stay in touch with them that way. So that if a social media site that you've been using goes out of business, well, guess what? You haven't lost anything. You still have your readers. You still have your fans and followers through your website and or your blog. And, you know, you can do a lot with it to brand yourself. You can use your blog to augment your social media posts. I mean, I feed to my social media from my blogs. And so as long as those social media sites exist, then, you know, having a website and a blog, it is benefited by social media. And social media is used, you know, by my blog and my website. Now, in conclusion, I believe that authors today have a lot to think about. And new authors, even if they're not young, hint, hint, we all need these answers. We have a lot of questions and we need answers. So if you're one of those who constantly thinks of things that you need an answer for, you get tired of going to Google to find the answer, and isn't Google just a big rabbit hole, then, leave me a comment down below. And if I know the answer for what you're asking, then I'll give you the answer. And if I don't know what the answer is to what you're asking, I will find it out for you, because I would not want for any of my fans and followers to go without having the knowledge and the tools necessary to succeed in today's writing industry, because it's a big world out there, you guys. We all have legitimate questions, every one of us. And, if I had known the things then that I know now, I might be a multi-million-dollar bestseller, as the old adage goes. But you know what? It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. We just have to keep hunting. We keep pecking. We keep asking questions. Pretty soon we're going to have the knowledge that we need to be successful. And isn't that what it's all about? Until next time. See you then.